Before starting with the actual talk, I want to say something I didn't get to last night about the duration of the meetings. Don't feel that you have to compute whether you have been in there 10 and a half, 11, 12, 13 minutes or so. Sometimes a meeting goes a little bit longer, sometimes a little bit shorter. To keep it around 10 minutes and not burden the mind with having to add 12s, 13s, or 14s. Well, if you've been in for 15 minutes, well, maybe next time it can be 5 minutes or so. But there is some leeway. We have done this during the past several retreats, and everyone, as far as I remember, came into a meeting at least 6 times, maybe even 7 times during the retreat. This is day 1 of the November 91 7-day retreat at Springwater. There are quite a number of people here who haven't been here before. So this first topic of every beginning retreat talk is very important, but not only for the people who are here for the first time, but for all of us. To hear again, to listen to say, to look at. And that is, what is listening to a talk like this? Listening without authority, talking a little bit about this whole problem of authority, and about our relationship with each other. What is our relationship in this retreat right now, during meetings, anytime we meet? It's very important to look at from the very outset, so that images that are there can be seen and not new ones build up in the process, which separate us and make hard or impossible to listen directly to what is being said and look at whether it is so or not. Listening to a talk like this is not the ordinary listening to a lecture or political speech or whatever academic course. It doesn't call for agreement or disagreement, for conveying to memory so one can repeat what is being said to others, or to the teacher who will examine one whether one has remembered everything correctly. This is not the point at all in a talk like this. One is not called upon to commit to memory, to know or to repeat, to quote. A talk like this has meaning when all of us, as we're talking, including myself in the talking, look at what is being said. Not in an accepting or in a rejecting way, but in a questioning way, which means not taking it for the truth or refuting it as not being the truth, but wondering, to look immediately, or if nothing can be seen at the moment, to let this question operate about authority. Do I accept what she says? Want to be good in remembering? Or want to fight her in what she says? To come upon ourselves in the listening. Upon ourselves meaning our ingrained habits and reactions, our ingrained ways of listening need to come to the surface, come into awareness. Very, very important that one become aware of how one listens to a talk. What all is involved in the listening, the images of the person that one has, images of importance or traditional images of a person sitting there in a hall like this, in a meditation hall. What is projected on the person who is doing this talk, and that affects the listening. Just to see that, to understand that as it happens, so one is not under the influence of this process of projection. Projecting authority onto someone who speaks in front or in a circle with others, with a microphone there. Just because this format is the only one that we have so far found to be adequate, does not mean authority is implied in that. Even though it is as sure as anything being projected because of the format. Unless one is very alert to listen to what is being said and not be concerned over the one who's saying it. The authority image, the authority listening and reacting, absorbing is so deeply ingrained. People tell me this again and again. Maybe have been here for years. And still either automatically accepting what is being said or wanting to be led, wanting to hear what one should do, what the truth is, hoping to have someone else do the seeing and the looking for one, and then maybe transmit that magically to oneself, which is impossible. No one can see for another. No one. If that was the case, all of us, with all the seers that have gone on before us, all of us would be seeing, transmitted by the former seers to us. But it doesn't happen. Seeing has to happen in oneself. And no one knows how this happens. Many theories, many schools, many methods which have something to do with training the mind, maybe to become concentrated, unscattered, one-pointed, but has nothing to do with this instant of waking up to what is so. Has nothing to do with being schooled. It happens unfathomably in us, in human beings, to wake up to this instant of what's actually there, regardless of the interpreting programs in the mind. So just having said in the past, I don't see myself as a teacher, hasn't been very effective. Because people tell me, you won't anyway, so I shouldn't have even started it. If you want to say that I'm a teacher, that's up to you. I mean something quite different with that, which maybe we can see that, and if we see it, then the whole problem is finished. What is truth this instant? What is so, regardless of my upbringing and interpretations and programs and conditioning, to see what is so? Well, we just said it has to happen in each one of us on its own. Someone like myself sitting here, having done this for a while and at times seeing fairly clearly, can point things out, put things as clearly as possible, at times not clearly, and then you can ask questions. What do you mean by that? Sometimes this has a catalytic effect. That's the best word so far I've found. That it's not a direct causal connection, but just because something is said very clearly, then something happens. Yes, this is so, but the seeing has to happen in oneself. It is not transmitted by the one who has said something clearly. Because if you and I see clearly, then there's no problem between us of higher and lower, teacher, student, and all of that kind of stuff. Then the seeing is one seeing. It's the same seeing. When it happens without images, without programs interfering. The me program being the most dominant in all of us human beings. The most contorting, distorting of the programs is the whole me program. What I need, what I want, what I fear, what I know, what I want to be, what I am. All of that very thoroughly impacts this open listening to what's actually there, right in front of us, right within us. And as we said earlier, to become aware, to become cognizant of this deep-seated need to be led, to be guided, to be told, to be structured, to feel safe, and relieved of what seems the burden of finding out for oneself. But actually, when that fire catches, of needing to find out for oneself, it's not a burden at all. As one person said already this morning, when there's some curiosity, there is some energy then to look, because one is curious to find out. It's amazing how it works. I need to find out, how do I relate to this person? Take this right now, the one who's talking. How do I relate to her? What do I think about her? How do I see her, imagine her? What do I want of her? And let these images and ideas come up so that there is some clarity about our wants and needs and motives in coming together here. If these motives are discovered and clear in the daylight, bright sunshine, then they don't work darkly, subconsciously, and therefore distortingly. Now, to mention something also from the very beginning of how we listen, particularly if somebody speaks emphatically, with energy, intensely, the receiving brain interprets, she's saying something that I should do and implying something I should not do. I should not have images. I should not want to be led. I should see for myself. See that we hear this way. See it right away. It's not what is being said. What is being said is, can one see that there are images, that there are the should programs running this organism, running it almost at all times, what I should do, what I shouldn't be doing. And this is how I hear a talk. People say, they come in a meeting and say, you said we should have no thoughts, or we should have no images. And I find that's very hard. Well, to listen carefully. See the image, that's enough. If there's really seeing of it, it takes care of that. The image is exposed, it doesn't have its subterranean, subversive power. Which it does when it's not seen. Then it's taken for something real and granted. Operates unnoticed. And one may even say, I have no images. One just doesn't look. So it's an immense inquiry into how do we listen? How do we perceive, hear what is being said? To be open to that. And maybe have insight into it. And in that interest in it, the listening to it, the listening sort of clarifies itself like sediment settling out in a murky well when it's not constantly being stirred up. One just watches. Stirring up is saying, I shouldn't have these programs, I shouldn't have images, I should hear without images. That's stirring. But to watch, to be present, to discover all the stuff that's floating around in the mind has a settling effect. The mind may clarify itself in this kind of attending, without a motive, without a should, without a threat, without a fear. If I don't come up to standards here, I won't be as good as the others. That's a deep program for all of us. Others are better than I am, or I'm better than others. Sometimes people in the first meeting say, I'm trying to find out what it is how to be here to be a good student. Discovering maybe one is coming into a meeting to be approved of, to be liked. And trying to figure out the so-called teacher, what does she or he want? What we have all learned in school, how to prepare tests or papers according to what we think the teacher likes, so we'll get a good grade. Be passed. These operating programs for us. And can they enter the light of day, which is amazingly helped by talking about it, concerning ourselves with it here together, looking at it, thinking about it, questioning it together, also in smaller groups or in individual meetings. It sort of has some kind of a loosening or plowing effect on this dense soil of the mind. Soil not said judgmentally, metaphorically. To break up so that light and rain comes in. So it's clear what is going on in this body and mind from moment to moment. So one is not deceived or caught up in it. As being the truth, the true reality, which we all think until we question. We think that our thoughts and what they have created in terms of imagery and attitudes, beliefs, that this is the truth. We all believe that of our little system. It keeps us separate from each other forever if we don't question it and look at it. Yes, recently, if you watched the news about this conference in Madrid, everybody bringing out their gripes and grievances, and there was some lamenting on the part of reporters. There's no getting together. Everybody just talking about their own needs and grievances and wants. There could be, if we just listen to all of that, listen to everyone's grievances and gripes and needs and desires. Just listen to it, become familiar with it, that they're all different for each one of us. and that we can listen to it without attacking it, without fighting it, without thinking mine are the most important, without arranging them hierarchically. That would already be a wonderful thing. Not worry about this one bringing this up and that one bringing that up, but to find out about all of these separate realities that human beings individually, tribally, nationally live in, and fight each other over. Don't accept each other in it. And not aware of it, that it is a relative thing. Nothing absolute about any of this. No absolute claim or belief. It's all relative to the particular individual or social history and culture. And it all happens all over, the same thing, only with different content. It cannot be step number one to recognize that this is so, and this is what keeps us separate. Believing my separate reality and world is the most important. Wanting to impose it on others. Not realizing how it has been created in the first place. Through centuries and centuries, millennia of thinking and worshipping thinking, worshipping belief systems as being the true ones. Individually and socially we do it, collectively. If we do it collectively, that collective belief system bestows a safe or seemingly safe identity upon me, to which I cling, because now I am something. A Jew, a Muslim, or an Arab, or Christian. Here we're questioning all identity, all identification. We sort of touched upon it last night. Do I have to be anything represented symbolically, historically, traditionally in the mind, through thought, through image? Do I have to be anything? Or as long as I am something connected with remembrance, symbol, tradition, image, idea, I will be separate from everyone else, except maybe those who share that collective thing. But even there is always hassling going on and strife and struggle within the collective, because the individual realities still are separate and believed to be absolute for each one of us because we haven't questioned them. So where do we begin? In this enormous worldwide problem. One person said this morning, I don't know, by watching the news, are things getting worse? It looks as though things are getting worse all the time. The violence, the hatred, the at each other's throatness. So where do we begin in this? To get to the root of the whole thing. Not think and devise surface treatments. We may be engaged in that too, but this is not what we're concerned with, a surface treatment. I'm interested in getting to the root of every human problem. The greatest being isolation, separation, self-centeredness, not said judgmentally, but factually. And with the isolation, the insecurity, the loneliness, the defense, and the build-up of defense, collectively and individually, collecting of armaments, either made of chemicals and metal or of words. Defensive words are also chemical, because the instant I defend myself, 10,000 chemicals start circulating throughout this body. arousing all kinds of glands and organs and cells and muscles to become tense, to become agitated, fearful or aggressive. Can that be watched 1 instant in a retreat like this? Feeling attacked, feeling slighted by someone. Someone getting in line in front of one and taking the last prune. Yesterday we talked about being quiet, caring, considerate of others in the room, but we didn't talk about the other side. How does one listen to someone clunking into the room and opening the zipper up and down, rustling the plastic bags? It's very interesting to find out about how one listens to that. First of all, bottom line is the affected nervous system. And in the course of a quiet retreat, a lot of silence, a lot of quietness, the organism becomes more sensitive. The nervous system is more reactive to input. And can it just remain with that? The more rawness maybe of the nervous system, and therefore a slight hurt or so if there's a rough noise, and hearing it as such, feeling it. But that's not where we leave it, is it? Or where thought leaves it. This becomes the raw material for a big build-up about the others. Their inconsideration, my victimization through them. And to listen, to wiretap in, as it were, to all the lines that go on. What he is doing, what she could be doing and isn't doing. What I am suffering. How we talk to ourselves about factual events that happen. Can't let it be left at that. There's a constant building up through thinking lines. Words, images. Remembrance is pouring in, how I've always had to contend with this. People just haven't paid attention to me. Why is it that always me gets victimized and so forth? Or the anger at someone who doesn't respect what I respect. I put great effort into being quiet. I take the rules seriously, very rule conscious, and somebody else just flagrantly transgresses it. It dates back to our childhood. As children, when we learn not to accept something through punishment by our parents, not to accept something in ourselves because we've been punished for it, then we can't accept it in anyone else anymore either. So the older brother jumps on the smaller sister for doing something he's learned not to do. Then maybe he's told, don't jump on your little sister. She's so little. She doesn't understand yet. So confusion arises and maybe more anger and frustration. So now in the room we can let it out, verbally, inwardly. And with that, a tremendous amount of noise is created, which is incommensurate with the initial noise that started this whole thing going. Can we observe that? Remember once being in a motel room where the people next door had their television on so loud you could hear everything. And it sounds particularly irritating when you don't even see the screen. All this canned laughter. So I waited and waited and waited. And about 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, I knocked on the door, on the wall. And no answer. People were asleep. I had to come to terms with this thing. It took me a long time to realize If you really listen to all the noise that the internal reactions produce, you may not go to sleep anymore because a lot of energy is now aroused to look and to see, discover things. But it doesn't matter anymore. Because you're seeing something about yourself and your relationship with others. And this extra stuff can dissipate. There may even be peace with noise. If you have questions about anything that is being said, it isn't clear, or you feel it is not like this, or you want to go over it again, have additional questions, feel it didn't go far enough, please, after the talk, jot it down and bring it to a meeting. You're never wasting my time. Sometimes people say, I have to ask something again about this, but I hate to waste your time. I'm here to discover and discuss things with you. This is what I'm here for. It's very challenging when people don't just take everything, but question it. And I may not be able to go over what I'm saying right now. That may not be in the memory anymore, very likely is not. But we can start afresh. That's what we should do anyways. Look at it freshly, not with remembered words, but with words which come right now as we look anew at what is before us, within us. And I do write down questions which lend themselves well for a talk. And I write down whatever I remember. Sometimes there's some time before somebody else comes in, or in a break period. And sometimes I forget questions that were asked. So don't assume that the ones that are being read are the important ones, and if yours wasn't read, that yours was unimportant. Rather realize how we feel all the time. How am I coming out in this? Judging ourselves through how we think someone else judges us. But this someone else may not be judging, may just have forgotten. The verbatim question is certainly never remembered. I have to reconstruct it the way I remember the meaning of the question. And that may be different from the way you put it. If you wish your question to be read exactly as you put it, then do write it down yourself and hand it to me. It's a help to me anyways, and I don't have to go through that myself. Sometimes, or very often actually, it happens that several people are asking the same question. I don't write them down 5 times, but make one question out of it. Maybe sort of a little bit different from any one of the individual ones. So if you don't recognize your own, don't feel that you've been misunderstood. If you do feel and want to bring it up, do bring it up. In group or private meeting. If you bring up something that is very, very personal and private to you, then do mention that to me, that you don't want it brought up in a talk. Although I do also have some feeling for that. Certainly when the questions are written down, they are not, I'm careful that no identity of the questioner is revealed, that they remain anonymous. But if there's something you just wish to discuss under 4 eyes, then do mention it to me, and it will not be brought up. Now, after saying all that, let me state, you don't have to bring a question to come to a meeting. If you have none, but you want to come to a meeting, then do and bring nothing. and we'll just sit with nothing. Can we do that? Or something will pop up and I'll look at it. Or just hear the wind. Right now it's still. See the sparkling of the branches which are now so bare. Amazing, isn't it? All these bare branches. A while ago so full, so green, so colorful. And now you see the hills through them. Everything has become transparent in the woods. Because this year's old garments are down. No longer necessary. They're just crunching under the feet. So, having gone together with this thought, with this talk and listening, what is our relationship with each other? Right now, what is our relationship? Right now, in meetings, as we eat together, stand in line for the food, meet on a walk, go to our rooms for rest. What is our relationship with each other? Is it possible, at all possible for us to be here as friends in a friendly gathering, working together silently for 1 week on the same problems, even though their content looks different for each one? Listening quietly together. The same wind. Is it the same listening? Without wanting to get something out of it. It's there in human beings. But if it's seen and heard like the wind, it doesn't have to affect the listening. Maybe at times one feels anything but friendly toward the person next to one or the person who is talking. Is angry, irritated, frustrated. Is it possible to listen to anger and frustration in a friendly way? Is that possible? Not I shouldn't be angry or I have a right to be angry. Anger is justified in this case. Or I transgressed the precept not to get angry. That's not friendly listening. That is meeting program with program. Friendly listening is, what's happening now? And listen to the anger, the frustration, the bitterness. How it verbalizes. No, first the words and then the feelings. This is how it goes. First the remembrance, the ideas, and then maybe quick as lightning, a remembered event. But it's still first the thoughts and remembrances and then the response of glands and organs and muscles. Listen to that in a friendly, interested way, not totally identified with it, that this is me or because of you. It's the same for you as for me. We can drop the whole blame program. Wouldn't that be marvelous? not to have to blame ourselves, not to have to blame each other, but just to look and listen what's going on without fault finding, which means we have to see the fault finding program. When it comes up almost instantly when something happens. Who did it? Whose fault is it? Was it my fault? Oh, it was my fault. Guilty me. It's just a program, deeply conditioned in human beings, causing incredible misery, pain, burden, and revenges. So whatever comes up, can it be listened to friendly-like? Not with blame. The blame has been discovered and dispelled in the discovery. Because it prevents seeing and listening. We will end here for today.